Everybody to another live. Today we are talking about the physical benefits of sobriety, and I went into these in a ton of depth in my most recent podcast episode 159. So if you want to learn all about what alcohol does to the body and then how it recovers in sobriety, go listen to that one. That's episode 159. But I wanted to talk a little bit about some benefits that you might see when you first stop drinking. So for me, I think mine were more mental, and it was really exciting, and that kept me on track and excited about sobriety. But the main physical benefits that I had were with my heart. And I had high blood pressure when I was drinking, and my resting heart rate was in like the mid 80s. I would wake up in the morning like that with a racing heart, and that's because of the way that alcohol affects the heart. So I have an episode all about this, episode 17, if you want to learn like what the heart does and then what alcohol is doing. But basically, the more alcohol that you consume, the faster your heart is going to beat. So alcohol makes the heart have to work harder, there's Rudy, to do its job, which then increases your heart rate, and it also constricts the blood vessels, which increases your blood pressure. So then your heart has to work harder to pump blood throughout your body. So it's really common actually to have increased blood pressure and increased resting heart rate when you're drinking. Rudy just woke up, by the way, everybody that's joining. So if you hear a lot of crying, it's time for his crying routine. So just smile every time he does it. He kind of does it a lot, and it's very cute. So give me a heart or something if you notice improvements with your heart when you stop drinking. That was my biggest thing. So my blood pressure when I was drinking, it was like 135 over 85, something like that. And now I go to the doctor and my blood pressure is like 110 or less over like 60. Huge difference. And my resting heart rate was in the mid 80s at all times, and now it's like 65. And that's a very big difference, and we don't realize that kind of stuff. Like, unless you have a Fitbit or some kind of tracker and you can see it, or you go to the doctor a lot. But a lot of us, while we're drinking, we skip going to the doctor. I definitely did. I think I went to the doctor once in like the whole 7 years that I drank, because I just didn't want to talk to them. But you don't realize how much that impacts the way that you feel. So we're walking around all the time feeling like trash, and that's because our body has to work so hard because of all the alcohol that we're drinking. Our livers also have to work super hard just to do their job. So the liver's job is to remove toxins and bad stuff from your blood. If it's saturated with alcohol and it's distracted by trying to process and eliminate this poison that you keep blasting yourself with, it's not going to be able to do its job very well. And in my most recent podcast episode, episode 159, I also describe how there's two other processes that get recruited when you drink a lot of alcohol and your liver is overwhelmed. And that's like a big long story, so go listen to that episode. But your pancreas comes into play, and like other things come in to try to help out. So your body is just working really, really hard all the time to try to process all this alcohol. And when you stop drinking it, your body can just relax and do what it's supposed to do. It can finally just live. And when you're drinking alcohol, like for me, I was a daily drinker, but even if you're like binging on the weekend, your body sees alcohol as a priority because it's toxic to the body. So it's going to stop doing certain things, or it's going to do them way less to get rid of alcohol. And we don't even realize like the impact of that because we get so used to feeling bad all the time. It becomes normal. I was saying in a recent meeting with my community members that, like, we're pretty tough. Like, we push ourselves really, really hard while we're drinking. We were talking about getting up at like 5 in the morning and exercising and like doing all this stuff while we're drinking. Like, we push ourselves very hard while our body is exhausted and working overtime too. So if you're doing Dry July, a lot of exciting physical benefits that you're going to get this month. The physical benefits happen fast because the body's very resilient. The mental benefits are a little bit slower. So later this month, I have an episode about what to expect emotionally and then what to expect cognitively when you quit drinking. So if you're not subscribed to my podcast, make sure you do that. It's called Sober Power, just like my page. And I'll explain like kind of what's going on in your brain in the beginning of sobriety. But if you guys have any questions, I can take those too. I'll stay on as long as you guys have questions. There's a little like question bubble with a question mark on it. That makes it easy so I don't miss it. And Rudy is meowing on the other side of the house for the moment. So I think we're okay. But he could come back any minute. So if there are any questions, let me know. I am here to answer them. Hey, Rudy. He came back. So any questions on getting started, what to expect, things that are more difficult for you, anything you want me to answer, let me know. And while we wait for people to type in their questions, all of this information and more is on my podcast. So if you don't listen or you're resistant to podcasts for some reason, then you should listen to mine because it's only 15 minutes. So you should check it out. So question, tips for transitioning from Dry July to August in terms of telling other people. You don't have to tell other people, but I would just say, I feel so great. I'm going to see how long I can go. Period. That's it. Give them as little information as you possibly can, because the more information you give, the more you're giving them to respond to. So I wouldn't like make excuses or like say that you were feeling bad before, because then they're going to ask why. I would just say, I am loving this so much. I am going to continue. And you also don't have to make an announcement that you're extending Dry July. You can just keep going and not tell anyone. Question. What is the easiest way to get signed up for your community? If you go to my website, soberpowered.com, and you click the join button at the top, that is the easiest way. Or DM me if you can't find it. How long for the body to be optimized after drinking? That depends on how old you are. If you're a man or a woman, because women don't process alcohol as well as men do, it impacts our bodies more. It depends on your genetics, like how good your liver is at processing alcohol. It depends on like how often you drink and how much alcohol you drink at one time. So there's a lot that goes into it, but a lot of physical benefits can happen in the first 30 days, a lot of mental benefits in the first 60, but really up to the first year, you're going to have a lot of benefits. So I would say like within a year, you're going to be feeling really good. Maximum benefits I've read are 5 to 7 years later. So I'm not there yet. I'm only 3.5 years. So that might feel like, oh my gosh, I have to wait 5 years. but I've felt great most of the time, and it just keeps getting better and better. So if I feel this good now, how good could I feel a year and a half from now? And I talk about all this on my podcast too. This month especially is about like what to expect moving forward. Can you talk about when you have been alcohol-free for a while and you feel like you're in a good place and you're tempted again? No. This is why it's important to have a community so that you can see other people and their journeys and realize that like you can't go back there. And if you were someone that could drink moderately and have it not be a thing, you would have been doing it this entire time. So there's no changing it. Episode 99 of my podcast is actually all about why you can't change the way that you drink and like why this is permanent in the brain. So even though the brain and the body, they heal and recover, there's still pathways there that can be reactivated. So maybe you start drinking and it's like even good, but eventually you're going to relax back into normal drinking because you carved out these pathways in the brain that just make you drink that way. So I would say if you're feeling tempted, lean on your support, whether that's meetings, community, therapy, a sponsor, your spouse, whatever, like random people on Instagram, whatever it is, lean on your community because you don't want to test it out at all. Because you're going to have the same result, and then you're going to be kicking yourself for having to restart and go through the beginning all over again. So 100% do not recommend. I've done it. I have a video on my YouTube about it, actually, about drinking again on my birthday after 90 days of sobriety, so check out my YouTube. But don't do it. I don't recommend it. Can listening to too many sober podcasts cause triggers and why? This has happened to me in the past. Makes me think about drinking more. Also, hi, Becky. Hello. I think it depends on the podcast. There are a lot of podcasts that have guests that talk about their drinking. And I think those would be very triggering. Those are useful too, and a lot of people love those. Those are some of the more popular podcasts. But listening to other people's stories about drinking might trigger you. And just thinking about the past or thinking about alcohol too much can trigger you. I would just try to be mindful about which ones are doing that. Or if there's like, if you listen to one in the morning and then you move on with your life, is that good? But if you listen to another one at lunch, does that cause a trigger? So I would start to get curious about like how many are causing the trigger and like if there are specific podcasts that are doing it for you or specific styles of podcasts. Because I know there are some that do really focus on the drinking days and stories about that. Okay. How does alcohol impact recovering from exercise and injuries? I have an episode on this. I think I'll put it in the caption, I'll look it up. But basically alcohol is, because remember, alcohol takes priority over everything else. So your body is going to prioritize getting rid of alcohol over building muscle. That's not really important for you to continue living. Or burning fat, also not critical for you to continue living. And recovering in general so that you can do the next workout. Rudy's playing with the tiny microphone cord. He's trying to eat it, which is great. Thank you, Rudy. I'll take this back, Rudy. Thank you. Oh, cat life. So what I observed for myself when I was exercising, I used to do a lot of weightlifting, and I plateaued in strength, and I couldn't move beyond it. And I got stuck there, like no matter what I did, even if I went like 7 days a week and did a program and everything, I could never get beyond this plateau. And then I quit drinking, and I like shot up above it real fast. And it was exciting. So just remember, like, anything that's non-essential for you to continue living is going to be deprioritized or stopped completely, depending on how much alcohol you're drinking. But building muscle, recovering from a strenuous exercise session, and burning fat are not critical for your life, so they're going to be deprioritized. Let me see. What do you enjoy most about helping others give up drinking? I love that question. I have two favorites. I think one of my favorite things recently is when someone, like, we have a newbie in a meeting, and the newbie wants to introduce themselves, which is super brave. And then they say one of my favorite phrases, "It just feels different this time." I love that. I love hearing that because that's what a lot of people say when it is just different and they're done for good. So I love hearing that phrase. I think I just like seeing people build their confidence in themselves and live their lives again and find things that they enjoy and be free and not have to hate themselves anymore. I like when people can just be themselves and be happy and realize, like, I can't change this and I'm gonna let it go. And I also like when people kind of level up and they get to the point where they can encourage the new person. I love that because it helps them stay sober too, because like a question I answered a few questions ago, when you're tempted to try it out again and see if it's different this time, being around other people who are just getting started is going to remind you where you came from and all the things that you would go back to, but it's also going to remind you of how you used to think. And that helps keep me sober, because I've had some of those moments where I'm like, maybe I wasn't that bad. So many people here are worse than me. There's a lot of people saying that they had a lower bottom than me in my comments. Maybe I wasn't that bad. But then I interact with newbies and I see that their thinking was exactly like mine was, and I'm not going to go anywhere near it. So I think being around other people at various stages of recovery is really helpful, and I like to see people move to different levels in there. So last call for questions, and then I will give you back your day. So any last minute questions, let me know. I'm going live again later this week. I forget when, I think Thursday, but you can check the schedule on my page and you can get a notification so you don't miss it. And all these are posted afterwards too. And listen to my podcast if you haven't. So my most recent one is about what to expect physically. So that could be a great place to start if you are new. What is your best advice for getting started being a sobriety influencer or advocate? I have a few things of advice. Number one is, I'll call it be the cockroach. So if you've listened to my podcast, episode 155 was all about like my last year of being a full-time entrepreneur and everything that I learned and what makes me different from other entrepreneurs in the space. And that is being the cockroach. I'm the cockroach of sobriety. Like, I'm just going to keep showing up no matter what, no matter how much Instagram wants to drop my reach, or like how much of a plateau I have or whatever. I'm just going to continue to show up. My podcast is over 3 years old. I've never missed an episode. That's really important. Be consistent with whatever you're doing and never miss a day or an upload. Instagram, like, that's not the same thing. Unless you say you're going to go live every week, then don't miss a week. But I would recommend that you start a podcast or get on YouTube or something like that, something long form that you can make money off of ads. The reason that my membership and my course is lower cost is because a lot of my income comes from ads. And that makes all of this, that's Rudy, that makes all of this stuff free. But I'm getting compensated for it from ad revenue. So there's a lot of people in the sober space that do not have ad revenue, and they get stressed about money, or they have to have things be like higher cost. So I would say start a podcast or a YouTube channel right away. And it's not going to be monetized for like a year. But be patient, be the cockroach. It'll be worth it. And for anyone that listens to my podcast, thank you for listening to the ads, because if you don't listen to them, I don't get paid for them. So thank you. My other piece of advice for you, if you want to be someone like me and have like a platform, is build relationships. Who you know is very important, and don't just like get to know people so you can use them or so they can reshare your stuff. Like, I have a lot of people DM me like a brand new page, and they're like, I'm trying to like grow my page. Can you share my stuff? It's like, no, I can't. I don't know you. I'm protecting my people. I worked very hard for my page, so you should also work hard for it. So I would say don't use people. Build authentic relationships. Be the cockroach and get some kind of long form content. Because even though we're on Instagram right now, Instagram sucks. It's the freaking worst. I hate it. It's so depressing. We have no control over the reach or anything. But on a podcast, if you subscribe to my podcast, you're always going to see a new episode. It's not going to be hidden randomly because the podcasting app doesn't like me that day. So that's why I think long form content is really good. So I hope that all helps. But listen to episode 155 of my podcast. And listen to the ads. What about the people who judge sobriety and make snarky comments or rub it in that they drink daily and don't see an issue? We send them love, and we hope that they get to know the joys of sobriety someday too. I think people that judge sobriety are people that are terrified of having to get sober themselves, but deep down they know they should. So I don't think that we should think anything bad of them. We just wish them well and hope that they come hang out with us someday, because they're welcome. Any good reads about recovery or mindset about alcohol? My favorite books are The Unexpected Joys of Being Sober, Drinking, a Love Story. A lot of people like This Naked Mind. If you are a guy, then good books by guys are one's called Dry, and then another one is Alcohol Lied to Me. I would just go on Amazon and search the word sober or quit drinking, and you'll find a lot of great books. And for things about mindset, I have a course called The Sober Mindset that's all about your mindset about drinking, so you can get info on that on my website too. Any other questions? If not, I will let you go. And Rudy is currently bringing all of his toys in. Maybe I'll just show you Rudy. Hold on. He's currently bringing all of his toys in and playing with them right below what we're doing. Huh, Rudy? And now he stopped. But that's what we've been doing. Right here. So thank you guys so much for joining. I'm sure that Rudy will be attending the next live with us. But check my page and you can RSVP. I think the next one is on Thursday. But they're all posted on my page and on my YouTube. So I will see you then. And thank you guys for being here and asking questions and for all the hearts.